This, gentlemen, is the S-1 Bombsight. To develop this instrument to its present state of perfection, thousands of drawings were made and hundreds of experimental models were constructed. To build it requires the assembling of 2001 separate parts, many of them machined to a tolerance of not more than 2/10,000ths of an inch. To assemble it calls for a precision of craftsmanship that makes a watchmaker's work look crude. But all this was not for accuracy's sake alone. In the design, simplicity of operation was equally sought for. You can judge with what success by the fact that during the actual bombing run, you have only 8 controls to operate. The sighting angle displacement knob, the ground rate knob, and on the azimuth side, there are the azimuth displacement knob, the azimuth rate knob, the cross trail knob, the arming switch. Finally, back on the range side, there is the search switch. That's all. Nevertheless, these 8 controls, until you understand their function, can seem quite a handful of knobs. In fact, most cadets making their first run on the trainer think they have 2 hands full and a little more. Take this cadet, for example.
Your hands get full of knobs?
It's the names they got for 'em that drives me nuts. Azimuth, rate, sweep, displacement. Oh, excuse me, sir. Thought you were one of the...
Cadets? Well, it wasn't so long ago since I was one.
That's a Chinese decoration, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, you shouldn't worry about what they call those knobs. Just figure out what they do.
I know, but the more I study those diagrams, the more I get mixed up.
You don't even need diagrams. You know something? I once taught a Chinese boy how to use the S-1 without his understanding a word of English. Oh, it wasn't so tough. And it shows that that bombsight isn't as complicated as it sounds. Of course, that Ling Fu was a pretty bright boy, like all of those Chinese aviation cadets. Anyway, the old man had promised Ling Fu's CO he'd teach him to be a bombardier. So naturally, he passed the buck to me. I'd just come in from a mission over Hankow one night when he sent for me and told me I was going to teach Ling Fu to use the bombsight. How, he left for me to figure out. Ling Fu was crazy to learn, but he didn't know a darn word of English. Not one, except bombsight. Now there was a great start. He actually knew what a bombsight was. Oh, brother. And my command of the Chinese language was strictly limited to one word, chow. How to be a bombardier in one easy lesson, only without the words. Simple. Uh-huh. At first, it looked like I couldn't even show him. I flubbed around plenty trying to get started, and all I got was a shake of the head. Then I remembered something, that the Chinese invented the telescope. At least, I thought they did. It didn't matter. The important thing was that Ling Fu had something to look at that he could understand and I could use to explain. Of course, The telescope didn't have any lenses, but it had crosshairs made out of a couple of pins. Ling Fu was polite about it, but at that stage of the game, I'm pretty sure he thought I was crazy. What a piece of rolled up paper with a couple of pins stuck through it had to do with the problem of Japanese overpopulation in China must have seemed a little bit involved. But give him credit. Show him something and he caught on like a flash. From then on, we were off to the races. And half the time, he was ahead of me. Of course, the telescope idea was pretty simple. It wasn't quite so easy to explain what each knob was for. Take the sweep knob, for instance. What would you do about that? Here's what I did. I had him look up into the bombsight so he could see the prism turning. And I let him turn the knob himself so he could get the feel of it and at the same time connect it up with the telescope. About this time, we needed something to use for a target. I found a good one. Ling Fu didn't have any trouble understanding what it was when he saw that little flag. From there on, he was all for me. After all, blowing up Japs was what he was here for. So now we were about ready to go. Well, the first thing I had to do was to show him the difference between the sighting angle sweep knob and the sighting angle displacement knob, and how the sweep knob swings the telescope down fast when you just want to find the target, and the displacement knob moves it slow. You know, it wasn't long before I got so I could almost tell what Ling Fu was thinking. Sure, he was thinking in Chinese, I know that. But just the same, it was a little like he was talking to me in English. Number 1 knob moves the telescope very fast to find the Japs, and the number 2 knob moves very slow so you won't lose them. Anyway, I could tell from his expression he was getting it, and getting it straight, too. And a good thing, because I could see trouble coming up with that ground rate knob. The way he was beginning to track, all I had to do was to get an old electric motor that was lying around that told him that inside the box there was a motor that keeps the telescope on the Japs. Now we could see what I was getting at. Instead of moving the telescope by hand with the displacement knob, the motor drives it just fast enough to keep it on the target. He tried it himself a couple of times just to prove he had the idea. There's one thing about these Chinese. You don't have to spell things out for them. So now we were ready for our first bombing run. Of course, I only wanted to teach him about range the first time. How you pick up the target with the sweep knob and then move your hand back to the rate and displacement knobs. So off we start with our paper telescope and our swivel chair trainer. Okay, so there we had our ground rate synchronized. When we got to the end of the run, I could see things were really boiling inside of Ling Fu's head. So I just stood back and let him work it out for himself. He knew the motor turns the telescope, but what he wanted to know next was how the telescope knew how fast to turn it. Like I told you, it was just as if he was thinking out loud.
Inside Bombsight, there is small motor to move telescope, so that cross lines keep on Japs. That is clear. Plane moves slow, telescope bends down slow. Plane moves fast, telescope bend down fast. Turn inside knob to move telescope by hand. Turn outside knob same time. This tells motor exact speed to keep telescope on Japs.
He caught on all right. I guess when you're as anxious to get going on those Japs as he was, you catch on plenty quick. So I figured we might as well hit those azimuth knobs while he was hot. Anyway, what's so tough about azimuth, except the name they got for it? He was just as quick on those azimuth knobs, too. I guess by this time he was reading my mind and translating it back into Chinese. Of course, since we had a stationary target, I needed something to represent the wind. So I figured, for wind, what's wrong with a fan? With a fan and an old stick for wings, we could do everything but take off and fly around the room. So we started the run over again.
You move airplane like boat carried down river by current. Is that why target slides away?
Yeah, Ling Fu wasn't far from wrong about what makes drift. And as soon as he got that, I figured he was about ready for the azimuth rate knob.
Turn telescope little bit. Same time, turn airplane same direction much faster. But how does bombardier turn plane?
No soap. Ling Fu didn't get it. Finally, I actually went and got a PDI dial. That did the job.
Finger under glass tells you which way turn plane and how fast. Until there is no more slide. This way, that way.
Well, that seemed to take care of the PDI. Ling Fu understood now how the dial signals the pilot. So by the next run, we had nearly everything under control. First, he turned the telescope free of the plane. Then he turned the telescope and the plane together. using his finger for the PDI. That took care of the rate knob and the azimuth control system. Next thing was how to use the displacement knob with the search switch, the one-to-one system.
When you press button, airplane turns same amount telescope turns. No more, no less.
So, he finally knew how to get on a collision course. So we went back to where we'd killed drift before and got back on this target again. This time, Ling Fu wound up with the crosshairs square on the target. And naturally, he thought he'd blown up a whole shipload of Japs. Trouble was, he didn't know about that old devil cross trail. Poor Ling Fu felt kind of discouraged. It was tough going. Like it was for me till I figured out what you did was tilt the optics off to one side, instead of just swinging it out like a door. Teaching cross-trail tilt in English is tough enough anytime. But in sign language, it's a good thing Ling Fu was a bright lad.
You move upwind just enough. But how does Bombsight do that?
Boy, could I have used some Chinese then. That is, if they have a word for cross-trail knob. Then all at once, he caught on.
Yes. Those knobs move telescope up and down. These knobs side to side. You turn knobs on this side to stop drifting. Then you match hands on clock, and so you fly upwind just right amount.
I felt like cheering. Go to it, Ling Fu. You've got it all straight now. So good luck, boy. You're on your way.
Then I blow up Monkey Men into small pieces.
And don't think he was kidding. A few weeks later, he was sighting down a bomb sight of his own. Only this time he had Japs in it instead of a toy boat. He did okay, too. Blew hell out of a troop ship. First time out. Want to take another crack at it?
I guess if Ling Fu is ready for Japs without understanding English, I ought to be ready to chase a bug around.
Sure you are.
Wait a minute. What about your vertical gyro switch? Let it get up to speed before you uncage it. That's right. Pick up your target with the sight angle sweep knob and the azimuth displacement knob. All right, let's go. Clutch in your azimuth gyro and turn on your motor switch. Now kill your drift with your rate knob. Take it out of detent. Fine, just forget the sight. You don't need it. Now what do you think you're doing?
What were you trying to do? Drive it back on the target with the rate knob? Give him another try. He'll be all right.
Take her back for another run. You're drifting off to the left. Don't overcorrect now. Your drift is nearly killed, so start back toward detent. You undercorrected, so turn that rate knob forward again, but easy. Now get back on the target and see how you're doing. You overcorrected. Move your rate knob the other way. Looks pretty good now, so you'd better match those cross-trail pointers. Now get back on the target. Use the one-to-one system, displacement knob with the search switch pressed in. Double grip that rate. You're a little slow. Don't make any big corrections now or you'll be in trouble. Let them know what your drift is.
14 right.
Good work, mister. See you in China.